Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are diving deep into one of the most fascinating, most debated, most talked about trade scenarios that has been swirling around the NHL this entire offseason. And it involves two young players, two franchises moving in completely opposite directions, and one general manager in Chris Drury who is quietly, methodically, patiently playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. We are talking about Braden Schneider. We are talking about Shane Wright. We are talking about a potential blockbuster that, on the surface, sounds almost too wild to be real. And yet, the more you dig into it, the more you realize this thing actually makes a disturbing amount of sense. So let's get into it, let's break it all the way down, and let's talk about what this would mean for the Rangers, what it would mean for the Kraken, and why Chris Drury might just be the smartest guy in the room right now. So first things first, how did we even get here? How did we end up in a world where the New York Rangers are reportedly willing to move one of their young defensive cornerstones for a 22-year-old center who has struggled to find his footing in Seattle? Well, it all starts with the offseason Chris Drury just put together. The man has been busy. New York added defensive depth through Marcus Pettersson, Vladislav Gavrikov, and fifth overall pick Albert Smits. When you stack those names onto a blue line that already features Adam Fox at the top, and now Sean Durzi sliding into that second pairing role, the math starts to get uncomfortable for Braden Schneider. Suddenly, a guy who was logging over 20 minutes a night and doing all the dirty work, the blocked shots, the physical play, the penalty killing, finds himself potentially third pairing bound in his own building. And that is simply not the most efficient use of an asset that still has real, tangible trade value. The Rangers want to flip Braden Schneider for forward help, and that is not a rumor, that is not speculation. That is coming straight from Vincent Mercogliano at The Athletic, one of the most plugged-in Rangers reporters in the business. Even with their moves, the Rangers could still stand to add a forward before the season, especially after dealing Vincent Trocheck to the Utah Mammoth. Think about that for a second. Vincent Trocheck, gone. That is a massive hole down the middle of this Rangers lineup, and when you look at what they have behind Mika Zibanejad and JT Miller, the depth chart gets thin in a hurry. Chris Drury knows this. He has known this for weeks. And the name that keeps coming up as the potential solution: Shane Wright out of Seattle. Now let's talk about Shane Wright, because this guy's story is genuinely one of the most compelling storylines in hockey right now. Wright was selected 4th overall in the 2022 NHL draft. And when you go 4th overall, the expectations that come with that selection are enormous. You are supposed to be a franchise-changing center. You are supposed to be the guy who anchors a lineup for the next decade. But Wright's path in Seattle has been anything but smooth, and the Kraken, now in rebuild mode and actively trying to figure out what their future looks like, have apparently decided that the reclamation project is better handled somewhere else. Wright has been the subject of legitimate trade buzz this offseason after his agent confirmed the 22-year-old wanted out of Seattle, and the Kraken have been engaged in conversations about moving him. That right there is enormous. When a player's agent confirms a trade request, the market opens up in a very different way. This is not just front office posturing. This is real. And here is why the Rangers specifically should be paying very close attention. 22-year-old centers selected that high in the draft are typically not available on the trade market. Read that again. Players with that pedigree, with that draft capital behind their name, almost never become available. You can count on one hand how many times in recent NHL history a 4th overall center in his early 20s has hit the trade market, and the teams that capitalized on those opportunities, the ones who were willing to take the risk, absorb the uncertainty, and bet on the underlying talent, those are the teams that ended up with cornerstones. Chris Drury has to at least pick up the phone here. He has to at least have the conversation. Now let's get into the actual nuts and bolts of this trade, because this is where it gets really interesting. Schneider is a 6'4", right-shot defenseman who can kill penalties, defend around the net, and handle difficult minutes. He played all 82 games for the Rangers last season, recording 2 goals and 16 assists for 18 points. He averaged a career-high 20/27 of ice time, led New York with 140 blocked shots, and finished 3rd on the team with 163 hits. Those are real, legitimate NHL numbers. Schneider is not a liability. He is a valuable, versatile defenseman who has proven he can handle tough assignments at the NHL level. The question is not whether he is a good player. The question is whether his value is better realized in New York or better converted into something the Rangers need more urgently. And the cap math here is absolutely critical to understanding why this makes organizational sense for the Rangers. Wright carries a cap hit of just $886,666 for 2026-27 and will remain under team control as a restricted free agent when the contract expires. Schneider, on the other hand, signed a one-year agreement carrying a $5.5 million cap hit. We are talking about a difference of nearly $4.6 million in cap space on a single trade. The Rangers currently have approximately $2.4 million in projected cap space, meaning a straight exchange would create roughly $4.6 million in additional room for Drury. That is not just flexibility. That is the kind of flexibility that allows you to add another piece at the trade deadline, that allows you to be a player in a market that other cap-strapped teams simply cannot access. In today's NHL, cap space is currency, and Chris Drury just found a way to potentially print more of it while simultaneously upgrading his forward depth. But here is the wrinkle, here is the part where this deal gets complicated, and we have to be honest about the obstacles because this channel is not about selling you a dream, it is about giving you the full picture. The Kraken's stated preference is scoring forwards, not blue liners, which puts a straight Schneider for Wright framework at odds with what Seattle is actually looking for. That is the core problem. Seattle does not desperately need a defenseman right now. They need offense. They need scoring. And Braden Schneider, as excellent as he is in his role, is not going to put 30 goals on the board for anybody. So a straight one-for-one swap faces a fundamental alignment problem. What New York is offering is not exactly what Seattle has asked for. That does not mean the deal is dead. It means the deal, if it happens, likely needs additional pieces to bridge that gap, whether that is a pick, a prospect, or a sweetener of some kind that makes the package more attractive to a Kraken front office that is trying to add offensive firepower. And what about Shane Wright's own development concerns? Because we should address this directly. Wright dropped to 12 goals and 27 points in 74 games last season after totaling 19 goals and 44 points in 79 games as a rookie in 2024-25. That regression is real, and anyone telling you it is not worth discussing is doing you a disservice. He took a step back. His numbers went the wrong direction. And for a player with his draft pedigree, that is alarming on its face. But here is the context that matters. Wright has been buried on a Seattle team that has been a mess organizationally, bounced around the lineup, asked to play different roles, and never really given the consistent environment that young centers need to thrive. The Rangers, with their structure, their coaching, their established veterans up the middle in Zibanejad and Miller, could provide exactly the kind of supporting cast that unlocks whatever Wright has left in the tank. Sometimes a change of scenery is not just a cliché. Sometimes it is genuinely the variable that separates a bust from a star. Mirko Gliano also floated some alternative trade destinations and some alternative trade options if the right deal does not materialize. Defense-needy teams like the Anaheim Ducks, Chicago Blackhawks, and San Jose Sharks could have interest in Schneider. Columbus winger Kent Johnson and Calgary forward Connor Zary were named as change-of-scenery candidates worth a look. So the Rangers are not putting all their eggs in one basket here. Drury is a guy who keeps his options open, who works multiple angles simultaneously, and who has consistently shown the patience to wait for the right deal rather than forcing something that does not quite fit. That is both reassuring and slightly maddening as a Rangers fan, because you just want to see the move get made, but it is the right approach. Bad trades made in haste haunt franchises for years. The sense is that Drury is fine opening the season with Schneider on the third pair and revisiting the market at the trade deadline or next summer. And if you are a Rangers fan, that should tell you everything you need to know about where Chris Drury's head is at. He is not desperate. He is not panicking. He has a plan and he is going to execute it on his timeline, not on the timeline that the rumor mill demands. But the Shane Wright conversation is not going away. The interest is real, the logic is sound, and as we get deeper into the offseason, deeper into training camp, the pressure on both sides to make a decision is only going to increase. Wright wants out. The Kraken want to move him. And the Rangers have the asset Braden Schneider that makes the most structural sense as the centerpiece of any deal. The stars are aligned in theory. Whether Drury can thread the needle and get Seattle to accept what New York is offering is the billion-dollar question. At the end of the day, this is what makes the NHL offseason so incredibly compelling. Two teams, two young players, two general managers sitting across from each other, trying to figure out who blinks first. The Rangers need a center. The Kraken need to move right. Schneider is the chip. The cap math works. The hockey logic holds. And somewhere in a boardroom or on a phone call that we will never hear about,